Welcome back to The Will to Wisdom. We continue our exploration of one of the most profound and unsettling aspects of human experience, filtered through the lens of a philosopher who wasn't afraid to look into the abyss, Arthur Schopenhauer. He once wrote, "What gives the world of men its movement and vitality is the fact that the will to live everywhere manifests itself as sexual impulse, and after that as paternal and maternal love, which is closely connected therewith." In our last episode, we began to unpack Schopenhauer's metaphysical framework, particularly his view of sexual love, not merely as romance or attraction, but as a powerful, often tyrannical force. We touched upon his core concept of the world as being, on one side, representation, the world as we perceive it, structured by our minds through space, time, and causality, and on the other side, will, the blind, striving, irrational force that is the inner essence, the thing in itself behind all phenomena, including ourselves. We discussed the will to life, the specific manifestation of this universal will in living beings, driving them not just to survive, but crucially, to reproduce. Today, we dive deeper. We confront the uncomfortable truth that, according to Schopenhauer, our conscious desires and romantic ideals might just be an elaborate illusion, a trick orchestrated by this very will to life to achieve its own objective. We will explore how this instinct operates, how it seemingly calculates our attractions, and what the real, underlying purpose of this powerful drive might be. Prepare yourself for a perspective that strips away the conventional romance and reveals a primal, biological, and indeed metaphysical imperative operating just beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. This isn't just about biology. It's about the hidden forces that shape our lives and perpetuate existence itself, often without our conscious consent. Recap: the world as will and the illusion of love. Schopenhauer posited that the world we experience, the world of phenomena, is fundamentally an expression of this underlying, non-rational will. In living beings, this will manifests as the will to life, an incessant striving for existence and, critically, for its continuation through reproduction. Now, if the perpetuation of the species is the will's primary objective, how does it ensure compliance from individuals who are also driven by their own egoistic desires and self-preservation instincts? This is where the concept of sexual love, or more accurately, the sexual instinct, comes into play. Schopenhauer argues that nature, driven by this will to life, doesn't trust the individual's conscious reason or fleeting preferences with something as vital as the future of the species. Instead, it implants a powerful, often overwhelming instinct, the sexual instinct, which Schopenhauer calls the most vehement expression of the will to life. This instinct operates not by appealing to our rational understanding of its true purpose, but by creating a vivid, compelling illusion. It masks its true objective, the propagation of the species, behind the seductive promise of intense personal pleasure and fulfillment. The overwhelming attraction, the feeling of finding the one. The belief that union with a specific person will bring unparalleled happiness. This is the illusion, the trick, Desengaño, that blinds us to the underlying metaphysical drive. We think we are pursuing our own happiness, but we are, in fact, serving the will's purpose for the species. Schopenhauer calls this love a tyrannical and demonic passion, a drug that nature administers. It's capable of overriding reason, self-interest, societal norms, honor, and even the instinct for self-preservation. The sheer, often irrational, force of attraction demonstrates that something beyond conscious intention is at play. The instinct's calculation, beyond conscious preference. So, if conscious preference is just a mask for the instinct, how does this instinct choose who we are attracted to? It's not random. Schopenhauer proposes that the instinct performs a complex, unconscious calculation. The goal of this calculation is not the individual's fleeting pleasure or happiness. The true objective is the creation of the best possible individual for the next generation, one that will perpetuate the species in its most robust form, or even ideally, correct deficiencies present in the parents. Think of it as the species genius, genio della specie, at work. This isn't a conscious thinking entity. It's a metaphorical way of describing the teleological appearance of the instinct's action. It acts as if it has a plan, selecting partners who, when combined, will produce offspring with the most advantageous combination of traits. Schopenhauer breaks down this calculation into several factors. These aren't things we consciously tally up, but rather unconscious criteria that guide the instinct's pull. 1. Absolute considerations. The ideal type. The instinct first seeks partners who embody the ideal type of the human species, aiming for strength and health. This translates into attraction based on age. Attracting partners within the prime reproductive years is paramount, specifically between 18 and 28. There is revulsion toward older, non-reproductive individuals. Youth without beauty still holds attraction, but beauty without youth holds none, because the underlying drive is the possibility of procreation. Health. Acute illnesses are temporary, but chronic conditions or cachexia repel, as they can be transmitted to offspring. The instinct wants healthy stock, bone structure, and build. This is the fundamental base of the species type. Deformities are highly repellent, even if the face is beautiful. Schopenhauer notes a particular emphasis on small feet as a human trait connected to upright gait. The body's overall structure is a key indicator for the instinct. Beauty. More generally, beauty is highly valued because it signifies the pure, unadulterated type of the species. Attracting beautiful individuals helps preserve the species type. These are considered absolute in the sense that they are general criteria guiding attraction across the board, focused on maintaining the species' standard form. Schopenhauer notes that mere common attraction often doesn't go much beyond these points. 2. Relative considerations. Complementary correction. Beyond the general ideal, the instinct also considers the specific traits of the potential parents and seeks a partner whose qualities will correct the deficiencies or unilateralities in oneself. This is where attraction becomes highly individualized and is the basis for deeper, more passionate love. If one parent is small, the instinct might favor a tall partner. If one is fair, it might favor someone darker. If one has a certain structural deviation, it might seek a partner with a counter deviation that, in the offspring, would ideally cancel each other out. This isn't about conscious thought. It's the species genius combining the parents' traits, looking ahead to the potential offspring and seeing if their combined genetic blueprint creates an optimal individual. The attraction feels overwhelming precisely because the instinct perceives this specific combination as being highly desirable for its purposes. Schopenhauer startlingly states that the critical, scrutinizing look two young people give each other upon meeting is literally the meditation of the species genius on the individual possible only through the two. The intensity of attraction is the measure of how desirable that potential individual is to the will to life. He also provocatively suggests that conscious character traits or intellectual compatibility, what women say they fall in love with, have little to no influence on this deep, instinctual attraction. Socrates got his Xanthippe. Shakespeare, Dürer, Byron, all married women whose intellect or character was arguably not a match for their own genius. Schopenhauer claims this is because intellectual traits are inherited from the mother, a notion perhaps intended to grant women some importance beyond procreative capacity. But even this is easily overridden by physical beauty, which affects more essential points. The power of the instinct and its blindness. Host, this instinctive calculation, blind to the individual's long-term conscious well-being, explains the often irrational power of sexual love. Because it serves the species which is metaphysically more fundamental and enduring than the fleeting individual, it can compel individuals to make sacrifices that defy logic. It can lead people to disregard social standing, family wishes, financial prudence, and even personal safety or honor, all for the sake of union with the chosen partner. Schopenhauer notes that conscientiousness is weakest in this area, with otherwise honest people committing adultery without scruple, as if obeying a higher law, the law of the species. Dramas and comedies reflect this conflict. The interests of the species, the young lovers, triumph over the interests of the individual, the parents concerned with wealth or status. However, if the instinct's craving for a specific individual is thwarted by death, a rival, or insurmountable obstacles, the results can be devastating for the individual. The overwhelming desire, fueled by the species genius seeing a crucial opportunity, can become so intense that its frustration leads to profound suffering, madness, or even suicide. Schopenhauer mentions cases reported in newspapers or depicted in tragedies like Romeo and Juliet or Werther, where individuals destroy themselves because the species drive, concentrated in their hearts, cannot achieve its object. Examples and stories. The instinct in action. Schopenhauer's philosophy, particularly his ideas on instinct and the will to life, is vividly illustrated not just in human drama, but throughout the natural world. Let's look at some examples, including ones referenced by Schopenhauer himself, to see this instinctual calculation and the species imperative at work. Animal instincts. One of the clearest places to see the will to life operating through blind instinct for the species' benefit is in animals and insects. Schopenhauer refers to several examples. The drone. Foucault. Schopenhauer notes that the male drone's sole purpose is to fertilize the queen. After mating, the drone often dies. Many drones are raised, but only one succeeds in mating. Nature operates with opulent generosity and then leaves for it to perish. They are driven by instinct, blindly following the queen, unable even to feed themselves if cast out of the hive. This is a stark example of the individual existing solely to serve the species, perishing once its purpose is fulfilled. The ibex, Stambeco. Schopenhauer describes how the ibex, normally cautious and circumspect, becomes reckless during the mating season, Fregola, fighting rivals fiercely. He even mentions an instance where an ibex, chasing a female, leaped into a precipice she had fallen into. This demonstrates the sexual instinct's power overriding even the fundamental self-preservation instinct, all for the sake of procreation. Insects and plants. Schopenhauer gives the example of insects seeking out specific flowers, fruits, or even carrion or larvae of other insects solely to lay their eggs. They endure hardship and danger to achieve this, driven by an instinct that acts as if it understands the future needs of the larvae, even though the parent will not see or benefit from the outcome. He contrasts this with the Musca vomitoria, blowfly, being tricked by the smell of a plant, Arum dracunculus, that mimics carrion, leading it to lay its eggs in the wrong place where they die. This mistake illustrates how the instinct normally aims to optimize the environment for offspring, even when it occasionally errs. Bird nests. Birds build nests, an intricate task driven purely by instinct. This complex behavior serves the future young, not the immediate needs of the parent beyond the drive to build. These non-human examples clearly show the instinct operating as a blind force, calculating for the species, often at the cost of the individual's comfort, safety, or life. Human drama and tragedy. In humans, consciousness and egoism complicate things, but the underlying force remains. Sacrifice and crime. Schopenhauer mentions newspaper reports of love-related sacrifices. He specifically cites a French newspaper reporting a father who committed suicide so his son would be exempted from military service as the eldest son of a widow. While not a sexual act, Schopenhauer frames this within the broader context of the species' interest in perpetuating its members, showing how deeply the drive to support the next generation can run even to self-destruction. Crimes of passion, like adultery, comes. Schopenhauer concludes that marriages based solely on passionate love are often unhappy because they are made in the interest of the species, which prioritized a specific biological combination, neglecting the compatibility needed for individuals to live together day to day. Wisdom in disillusionment, navigating the instinct. This perspective can feel bleak, even cynical. If our deepest romantic feelings are just the blind will's clever trick for species propagation, where does that leave us? Is there any wisdom to be gained from this desengaño, this often painful disillusionment? Schopenhauer wasn't just a pessimist. He was also interested in eudaimonology, the art of living a happy life. Given his view that positive happiness is an illusion and that life is fundamentally suffering, oscillating between pain and boredom, his art of happiness is primarily about minimizing suffering and achieving a state of relative peace or tranquility. Understanding the instinct's calculation, then, isn't about becoming cold and detached from love, but about gaining insight, Einsicht, into the forces that drive us. This insight can serve as a tranquilizer, quietive. Here's what Schopenhauer's view on the instinct's calculation offers us in terms of wisdom. 1. Manage expectations. Recognize that the overwhelming feeling of being in love and the promise of infinite happiness through a specific union are largely the instinct's illusion. This doesn't invalidate the subjective experience, but it contextualizes it. Expecting a single person to be the source of unending positive happiness is likely to lead to disappointment, because the intense drive often subsides once the species' objective is achieved. 2. Understand motivation. When observing our own intense attractions or the seemingly irrational behavior of others in love, we can see the powerful, non-rational instinct at work. This understanding, while not excusing harmful behavior, provides a deeper insight into the forces that can override conscious will and reason. 3. Value the inner over the outer. Schopenhauer consistently argues that what one is, one's inner character, intellect, state of consciousness, is infinitely more important for true well-being than what one has or what one represents in the eyes of others. Reputation, status, possessions. The instinct's calculation focuses heavily on biological suitability, what one is, in a physical sense, for the species' purpose, but a conscious human life requires more for navigating suffering. Focusing on cultivating one's inner world provides a more reliable source of contentment than chasing external validation or the fleeting promises of instinctual drives. 4. Recognize the unchangeability of character. Schopenhauer believed empirical character is fixed and unchangeable. Experience helps us understand our own fixed character, acquired character, and the fixed character of others. This understanding, while potentially limiting, is crucial for managing relationships and expectations. The instinct might drive two fundamentally incompatible individuals together for the species' biological aims. But living a life together requires more than just biological compatibility. 5. Find value in other aspects of life. If the pursuit of instinct-driven pleasure is ultimately illusory, focusing on other aspects of Schopenhauer's wisdom, such as the pursuit of knowledge, the appreciation of art as a temporary escape from the will's striving, or the cultivation of compassion, Mitleid, can offer more enduring forms of tranquility or value. True love, for Schopenhauer, is compassion. By exposing the instinct's calculation, Schopenhauer offers us a stark, unromantic view of a fundamental human drive. It challenges our conventional notions of love and free will. But in stripping away the illusion, he arguably provides a foundation for a more realistic approach to life, one that manages expectations, understands the powerful forces at play, and encourages focusing on the inner aspects of existence that are less susceptible to the will's deceptive machinations. Conclusion. Schopenhauer's Metaphysics of Sexual Love is a challenging and deeply original contribution to philosophy. It paints a picture of individuals as instruments, albeit conscious ones, in a grand, blind, metaphysical drama of species perpetuation. The overwhelming feeling of attraction, the thrill of the chase, the promise of union, these are the tools of the will to life, carefully selecting partners through an instinctual calculation to optimize the next generation. Our personal happiness is, at best, a secondary outcome, and often the species' pursuit comes at the direct expense of the individual's well-being. The wisdom in this perspective lies not in negating love or denying its power for Schopenhauer, True negation of the will is a rare, difficult path. Instead, the wisdom lies in the understanding. It lies in gaining Desengaño, a sober disillusionment that allows us to see the hidden machinery behind one of our most potent drives. It allows us to navigate the often turbulent waters of love and relationships with a clearer awareness of the powerful, non-rational currents beneath the surface. It teaches us humility regarding the supposed supremacy of our conscious will and egoistic desires. In understanding the instinct's calculation, we gain a glimpse into the profound, often uncomfortable, truth of our connection to the species and the will that drives all existence. It reminds us that we are not solely individuals living our own isolated dramas, but also manifestations of a deeper, older force. The will craves wisdom, not just blind existence, but self-knowledge. And perhaps this stark, unromantic understanding of love is one of the most significant, albeit challenging, forms of wisdom the will can attain. As Schopenhauer reminds us, what matter is objectively, will is subjectively. Host nods slowly, looking thoughtful. Outro music fades in slowly. Thank you for joining us on The Will to Wisdom. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, please consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, may your striving lead you toward insight.